Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another week of EECS 494. The room seems a bit quieter than normal, right? Just a little bit. And I can't imagine where everyone is. Where do you think they are? Yeah. They're too cold?
Finishing their goal.
Well, I think chances are most people, yes. Yes, exactly. So chances are, I think most teams finished probably late last night. I saw a lot of stuff coming into Discord, kind of like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and so I would certainly not blame anyone for saying, hey, today just kind of feels like a watch the lecture recording kind of day, okay? And we do have that going right now. Congratulations to all of you. You finished what is, what most students say is the most difficult section of the entire course, that Project 1. Project 1, a very, very difficult project because you are kind of trying to come up to speed very quickly with Unity. You're trying to come up to speed very quickly with how games tend to be put together from a design perspective, right? That heavily component-based way of mixing and matching components that you write to try and create new things. And I was reading a bunch of the 494 feedback form, right, stuff for P1, and I saw a lot of people who were saying, ooh, that P1 code base we currently have, it's kind of nasty. Okay, a lot of people seem to be very excited to leave their P1 code bases behind. I do not blame you at all for this, and I felt very much the same way when I first took the course, when I was first learning Unity and how to make these games run, okay? We will very soon move on from the question of how do I make a game run, how do I make a game function, to what I think is a bit more of an interesting question. How do we make a game that doesn't just run, but is fun, is engaging, is enjoyable, okay? And that is much more of a design-oriented question. Very soon, this course will go from kind of feeling like an upper-level CS course where everything is standardized, right, to more of a genuine design course, more of a capstone MDE course. You're going to be, from here on out, designing pretty much everything that you make. And that's a very powerful feeling. It's also a major responsibility, okay? If you make poor choices in the design phase, you'll find that your engineering, your implementation phase gets really, really tough, okay? And so you'll get a feel for that now. I think most students say this is when the course really starts to get very satisfying, okay? So it's not going to get easy, but I think for many of you it will get easier. And the moment-to-moment work that you do will get a lot more satisfying. With Unity knowledge right under your belt, with better C# understanding, you're going to start to move a lot faster. For the amount of time you put in, you're going to get a lot more out, and now you have a lot more control as well, okay? So Project 2 does not begin until Wednesday. So I encourage you, it's not a huge break, but I encourage you to take the next couple days and not do a ton related to 494, okay? And then I might even say, you might consider taking a day or two off as we begin P2 Gold Spike as well, okay? That'll give you a little bit more of a break. You can recover a little bit, maybe catch up on some sleep, some other courses, maybe even play and try and enjoy a video game, okay? Wouldn't that be a unique thing? Yeah, I hope you feel a sense of satisfaction from finishing a very difficult project. And I know you probably didn't finish exactly the way that you wanted, okay? But you did finish, and that's something to be proud of, okay? So we've got a couple things to take note of right away. On this schedule, you have something called the P1 Postmortem. What on earth is that? Well, it's another very, very light and easily graded essay assignment, okay? And the good news is that this really is genuinely very easy to do, okay? The P1 Postmortem assignment, these postmortems, a lot of students really, really enjoy them actually. It is just an excuse to dump your brain and reflect on what happened the past 3 weeks, okay? That is it. It's your chance to get a bunch of easy points, raise your grade up a little bit, while you just think back, okay? What was it like to design and develop a game in 3 weeks, okay? Did you manage to keep your code dry? Were there any really nasty classes that you ended up making that became a God class, for instance, or became so tightly coupled it was difficult to work with, okay? What was it like working with your teammate? Is there a way that your communication on future projects could be a little bit better, okay? This is just a chance for you to sit down, dump your brain in 30 to 45 minutes, and kind of reflect, okay? See what can I do to make the P2 and P3 go a little bit better for me, all right? Yeah, this should not take very long. Please note that this is done individually. This is not a team assignment, okay? And the only person who's going to read these is going to be you. You're going to read your own, and then I'm going to read all of these, and I'll be grading all of these personally, okay? And so, yeah, you can say whatever you want to say. You can even tell me that you didn't like the project, okay? You can tell me that if you want to. I'd actually appreciate the feedback. Yeah, so hopefully the next few days at least will be pretty peaceful for you, all right? How many team members do you need to recruit for Project 2 starting Wednesday? 0. That's right, okay? So Project 2 is your chance to design and work on and prototype a game design entirely of your choice, okay? On P1, you had a partner that you had to kind of come to agreements with, right? On P3, you're going to have 3 to 4 teammates that if you want something in the game really badly, you're going to have to lobby them to do it. You're going to have to convince them this is a good idea. But on P2, this is all you, all right? And so if you have a crazy design idea that you want to try out, this is your 2-week chance to do it starting Wednesday. Okay? So please keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and get into it. Yep, the very, very difficult assignment, Project 1. But if it helps, right, those deadlines in Project 1 are just very tight, and they're constantly coming, okay? Why is it this way? Well, we really have to get that knowledge. We have to get that knowledge as quickly as we can so we can go do interesting design work. But if it helps, I always like to think about Walt Disney's perspective on deadlines. Walt Disney, a very interesting character. You could say many things about him, but one thing pretty much everyone would agree with is that he was very impactful, him and his teams that he assembled. And he was very, very much in agreement that everyone needed deadlines to propel their work and get things done. I see it a lot in the local game dev community, unfortunately, that you will have people who are working on a game and it's their dream game, and they just keep giving themselves deadline extensions, okay? They say, I'm going to finish it this month, and then the end of the month comes, and it's not ready yet. I'm going to give myself another month. And that turns into another 2 months. Suddenly it's half a year. Suddenly it's 2 or 3 years. Game comes out, it's missed the market, and it's not that good to begin with, okay? And so, right, when you start giving yourself deadlines, you might not reach a perfect result, but you do get something out. You do get something done, and you learn a lot from that process, okay? Thus, the next game, the next project, the next effort tends to go a lot better, okay? And so, keep that in mind. I know I do. When I decide that I'm going to launch a brand new course, EECS 298 course, and it's going to happen in September, that's kind of a scary moment for me, because I don't have the knowledge to teach the course. I might not have the tech or the staff yet, or the lecture plans or the assignments finished. But that deadline and everyone knowing it's coming, we got students registered to take this course. That's everything I need to go and grind that thing out, okay, and get that thing finished. So deadlines, if they're too tight, they can be unhealthy and unhelpful, but they can be very useful. And certainly P1 had some pretty gnarly deadlines, and you did a good job tackling them. So well done, okay? Well done. Let's see, what else? What do I got here? A goal, Napoleon Hill. A goal is a dream with a deadline, okay? So as soon as you have something you want to accomplish and you say, I'm going to have it done by this date, suddenly it's no longer just a dream that may or may not come true. It's a deadline, and you have to get to it. Some quick fun things. How many of you have taken the wonderful EECS 388 computer security course on campus? I was a huge fan of that course when I took it. Security is a very fascinating topic, computer security, and sometimes it intersects with game dev. In particular, if you are making a mobile game that has a live service or a backend, right, or maybe multiplayer, cheat detection and prevention is a huge deal, okay? If you're making a console, then preventing hacks and the distribution of unlicensed content might be a very important part of your business model, okay? So the Nintendo Switch was hacked, fairly early on in its lifetime, and very often for game consoles, you'll find extended talks from computer security teams on how they were eventually able to break the console, okay, the console security. Famously, the Sony PlayStation 3 was hacked. I think it was the PlayStation 3 was hacked in part because Sony implemented a random number generator function, okay? A function that was meant to give you a random number for use in encryption. Well, oops, this function returns 4 always. It only ever returns 4. But that 4 was randomly chosen, right? They rolled some dice before they chose this function will return 4. No, that's not how this is supposed to work. The encryption was shattered, and suddenly hackers gained complete access to the PlayStation, okay? And its master keys for signing all software. So that was kind of a disaster. In any case, we've got a really fun video here. In this hack, let me see here. How many of you have a Nintendo Switch? Nintendo Switch is a kind of an interesting console. Did you know that it actually has a web browser in it. Okay? Now, they never give you access to this web browser for whatever reason, but web browsers are very complex pieces of software. They update over time, and often they are, they have security vulnerabilities, okay? The Nintendo Switch uses, I think, an old version of WebKit. And so one of the hackers, main targets here is if they can get the Nintendo Switch to launch the web browser on demand, then they can hack it. Well, they discovered that in the manual of a particular game by Sega, of all companies, there is a web manual, okay, a game manual you can open that happens to have a URL in it, okay? Because of this, they were able to launch this game in order to launch the web browser on demand, and they were able to intercept these web requests coming out of the Switch, alter them in air over the Wi-Fi, and basically send the Switch to whatever website they wanted, okay, including a website that would run a security vulnerability on this version of WebKit, which Nintendo had not patched at the time, and that allowed them to dump things like, oh, here we go. Okay, it's taken a while. I guess the Wi-Fi. Oh, there we go. Okay, WK. Okay, we know where libc is in your RAM. Okay, and that's the start of a hack right there. And so you can see that when it comes to protecting the security of your devices, it is just a very difficult kind of cat and mouse game. Just the act of adding new features into your software or your hardware gives potential attackers the ability or more surface area to inspect and find a vulnerability in. Okay? And so that's just kind of how it goes. Anyway, I encourage you to watch the whole talk. Very, very interesting stuff. There we go. We've talked in this course about the topic of iteration, and this is about to become a much more serious thing, okay? On Project 2, midway through Project 2, you're going to do your first playtest, okay? That's going to mean we all come in here with our games, we set them up, and then we walk around and play each other's games and take notes as we watch people play our own games, okay? We're going to talk more about what a good playtest means and how to do a good playtest. But in the meantime, iteration is still very important. And one thing to note is that iteration is not just limited to game dev. It is something you use everywhere, especially in creative spaces and pursuits. Like, for instance, theater. Okay? Has anyone played a game called Resident Evil 7? Resident Evil 7 is a very beautiful game. It's very luxuriously made. Everything in this game must have been very expensive to finish and create. And so what I want to do is I'm going to show you a cutscene from the final game. It's a very important cutscene. It is the first cutscene in which you meet the Baker family, which are the antagonists of the game. They have kidnapped you. They are cannibals. And they've invited you to dinner, which is not the kind of place you want to be with a bunch of cannibals, okay? So I want to show you this cutscene, and a quick note, this is from a horror game, so expect some language, expect some nastiness, and let's take a look.
Where am I? What the hell?
Child, sleepyhead. It's time for supper.
Who are all you people? Where's me?
Eat it. It's good.
So big for no good here.
Yes.
Hit boy got to eat. He got to have his supper. Come here, boy. Let's do it.
Shit, he's not eating it, Jack. He's not eating it. Make that for him. You're a son of a bitch. Oh, I can't believe you, son of a bitch. He's not eating it.
This was a very special feast. Come on, boy.
Okay, you then tumble out of your chair, break out of your chair, and then it becomes a proper Resident Evil game. You're solving puzzles, trying to escape the mansion, all that good stuff. Quick question: what did Jack try and feed you about midway through the cutscene? Anyone know? It's hard to tell. If you look at it, you realize it's an ear, human ear. He's trying to feed you. Another thing, when Jack comes in with the knife and kind of pokes you roughly in the eye, remember that this is actually a VR game. So you can play this in traditional mode, but also in VR. So imagine getting a knife kind of jammed into your eye in VR. That's just the kind of game this is, okay? Anyway, so that scene right there, very well acted, okay? Looks beautiful, okay? Great voice acting, a lot of great artwork, a lot of great animation. They actually have this mocapped. So they have, I think, a team in Hollywood actually get into their mocap suits and they kind of walk through the environment and do all those motions for each of the characters. So very expensive to do this cutscene. You got to get it right the first time. So the question is, how do you get it right the first time? If you have a team of artists who are going to have to work on this cutscene for months, how do you synchronize the creative vision of 20 different artists and mocap actors and voice actors who are trying to figure out what this cutscene is going to be? They all have to be on the same page. Well, here's how you can do it. Here's the first ever rough draft of that cutscene. Okay? Let's take a look. The first iteration of that scene. This is the director of the game and some team members in their Capcom cafeteria, I believe.
フリーズでいいですかね、言葉は。実際に演技をしてカメラテストする。
どうしたの？食べないのかい？美味しいのに。
好き嫌いが良くないぜ、おっさん。せっかくおふくろが腕によりをかけてる。親父やりすぎやろ。まるでいいさ。
さあ食え。食え。
One of my favorite things here is noticing that when the director gets up, number one, he starts walking the wrong way around the table. And he's like, oh, oops. And then he forgets the knife. So wait a second, I need that. And so, but you see, right, it's super low budget, but it's also kind of fun. And especially with the music helping out, it gets the tone across and it gets the ideas of the scene across, okay? Even this cheaply, now everyone is kind of synchronized. Oh, okay, this is the perspective we're going to use. We're going to have the characters doing these things to the player, and then we're going to have this dramatic scene where Jack walks up with the knife and does some stuff, right? And so it works, and that's really all you need, okay? It's amazing. Games, modern AAA games cost hundreds of millions of dollars these days, but a lot of the things you see in those games start like this, okay? In the most cheap, easy to change ways possible. It's just really amazing, okay? You can watch the rest of this documentary if you want. A fantastic game, really, really cool team as well. I want to show you, has anyone played the Devil May Cry series? This is a very dramatic series, very action-packed, okay, full of energy and charisma from their characters. It is very, very anime in its stylings. So how do you make a really crazy cutscene, okay, in a series like this? Well, you're going to act it out. You're going to do so cheaply, okay? I want to show you the original iteration of the cutscenes right next to the final cutscene, okay? So watch this. I think you're going to enjoy this.
これでおしまいだ。何もかも。
第2ラウンドだ。
お前だけど俺もまだやれる。ブギ狙ってるだけ余計なまねしやがった。それだ
行くんだけど足手まといなんだよ。
奴の力は予想以上だ。俺たちの負けじゃない。俺が足手まといなんだ。悔しがるのはダメだ。良くなる方法を考えろ。もしダンテが負けたらユリゼンを倒すのはお前の役目だ。それがお前の腕を奪った悪魔の手だ。
All right. So you see, right? Even these incredibly well done, very difficult to animate scenes begin from a place that just synchronizes everyone, right? And as cheesy as this stuff is, right? Seeing it done in live action, seeing them use action figures, seeing them leaning back on tables and chairs, cheap and cheesy costumes, it all works shockingly well, okay? And people generally really enjoy watching this stuff. Which is why they included it in the game's extra settings, okay? So a quick announcement before we get into the main topics of the day. The recruiting process for Project 3, okay? Project 3 is not going to begin until after you come back from spring break, okay? So spring break, by the way, not far away, okay? You're almost there. You get a big, long break. You're really going to enjoy that, I think. But it is not too early to start thinking about who you might want to work with, okay? If you are on your Project 1, you may want to work with that partner again, okay? Lock them down if you had a great time. Or maybe you want to experiment and kind of go find some other teammates, right? No big deal. But start thinking about who you might want to work with. As you play games, other Project 1s that have all been posted in the Discord server, you can play those. You're also going to get a chance to play the Project 2s over the next couple weeks. Take note of which games you really admire, which games you like, and ask if you can work with those people, okay? Figure that out now, and you could make Project 3 a really great experience, or you could leave it up to chance again, right? Whatever you want to do, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, so for... Yes, and then P1 Postmortem just released. So make sure you take a look at that. Don't leave it to the last moment or it will be a bit more unpleasant, okay? So if you recall, last time we very nearly finished this lecture on the composition design pattern. This is kind of a complement and kind of a rival to the inheritance method of code review that you are so used to from courses like EECS 280, EECS 281. And it was a really kind of important aspect of what brought a game like Scribblenaught to life. This idea that if we want to support adjectives in our game, an infinite amount of characters, an almost infinite amount of adjectives, and how do we do that? Well, we're going to create a fiery component and an icy component and a flying component. And we can just reuse those things and stick them on any game object that we want, okay? And so composition, right, developing components and then sticking them onto things is super useful. If you go only by inheritance, you can run into big problems, okay? Because sometimes It's just very difficult to reuse logic and assets if you have an is-a hierarchy, okay? Sometimes it's a bit more flexible to go with has-a, okay? And sometimes you want to go with both, all right? So blah, 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 right? We've got all these objects we want to make. We create components. We reuse the components. When we have components that are really similar to each other, we can sometimes use inheritance to keep them dry, okay? And also to provide polymorphism so that if I want to just get any skin component that my game objects might have, I can simply refer to and do get component skin, the parent class, and I'll automatically get whatever skin components they tend to have, all right? So super powerful, makes your code much more elegant, helps it scale better. On the Sims, we used all this. Let's go ahead and, I think we actually ended here. So a question for you. How many of you have ever seen or heard of this book called Design Patterns, the Gang of Four book, right? A fairly famous book in design patterns. They explicitly say that in many cases, you should favor object composition over class inheritance. It is a bit more flexible. It allows you to reuse code in a little bit more of a flexible manner and can be very nice. On the Sims games, okay, there were components, and these components would basically allow you to do different interactions on certain objects, okay? So just because you have a stereo object, a game object in your scene, doesn't mean you can listen to it, okay? You need to give that stereo a listenable component, and then you can listen. Sims can come up, and the component can be configured, and the Sims can have a different experience, okay? But radios aren't the only objects that people can listen to. Can anyone think of other plausible objects that a Sim could listen to? Yeah.
TV.
A TV. Yeah, you can listen to a TV. Or maybe the TV can be listened to, but also watched. So you can actually choose which one of those interactions you want. Can anyone think of any other objects? Yeah, so that's good, right? But the idea here is that you build a component once and you can reuse it on many different objects, okay? One of my jobs on The Sims was to create, I think what was our first ever, maybe Sims 3 had it toward the end of its lifespan, but in The Sims 4 I ended up creating a waiting line component that basically allowed you to get your Sims to not kind of cancel their interaction if someone's already using it, but to form a waiting line, okay? So normally in the Sims franchise, if you tell two Sims to go use the same object, the first Sim to arrive will begin doing that interaction, and the second Sim will get their interaction canceled, okay? And they won't be able to use the object ever, okay? You have to reissue that command. So this waiting line component, if you slapped it onto an object, suddenly a Sim would walk up, see that it is already in use, and they would kind of form a line that kind of went out from that object. One thing that was really, really cool about this is actually the bugs. One fun bug that we had was that we would calculate the next location on the waiting line by basically just taking the vector from the object to that starting position and just extrapolating it out into space. We had some cool tech that would add some randomness, so it'd be a bit curvy, right? As humans don't tend to form perfect straight lines unless they're in a confined queuing area. But one issue I ran into was that you could have a wall. Imagine a wall right here. Well, what would happen is that the Sims would queue up like this. So first person in line like that, second person in line like that. Where would the third person line go? Anyone know? Where would the third person line go? Behind the wall. That's right. And it looked super silly. Okay? Because the third person would be like this. All right? And then they would turn to look at the second person in line. So they'd be staring straight into a wall. Then once the line moved up, they'd go walk all the way around the wall like this. Okay? And then get in line and then like that. It was ridiculous. Okay? That's not how a line would work in real life. And so we actually had to add some ray casting tech where we would ray cast when we calculated the next point. If there was a wall or an obstruction there, we would have the line kind of bend and curve around that wall. And it looked really, really great. Okay, this right here is from a trailer. I think I have some footage of it, some better footage somewhere, but I'm gonna have to find it. Okay. In any case, one question for you that might be of interest is, how do we get composition? Okay. We love this idea of creating components that are small, okay, and configurable that we can just pop on to a bunch of different game objects, however we please, mix and match them, even at runtime. But how do we get this? Okay, I want components in my project. How do I get it? Well, the first is just to use an engine like Unity. Okay, you're already doing this part. If you use an engine like Unity, composition is the only game in town. Okay, if you want to write any logic, you're probably going to do it in a component. Okay, the only alternative is a static class, pretty much. Okay. Or, I mean, you can use any kind of class, but components really is the name of the game, all right? In Unreal Engine, which is the engine that you'll learn if you take EECS 440, okay, the VR and AR course, composition is also something you can do there. The UI is different, and in Unreal Engine, components tend to be bigger, they tend to be chunkier, at least the built-in ones are. So you tend to have fewer components. This actor, called Light Switch, has two components on it. Static mesh component, which handles rigid body stuff, which also handles rendering and collision detection. And you have aft toggle actors. This is a component that allows you to turn actors like light switches, like lights off or on when you interact with something, when you click on it, okay? And so components are a big thing in Unreal as well. Though in Unreal, it is possible to do everything without components, you can actually put logic directly onto a game object. But components are still a very big thing in Unreal, okay? All right. If you take the EECS 498007 upper level CS course, which students are just kind of getting to this sort of assignment right now, you will build composition into your game engine from scratch, okay? You'll be writing C++, and you will build and empower components that are made of Lua code in your engine. So you'll actually be the one to get those super useful lifecycle functions like start and update and destroy. You'll be the ones to make those work and run when they're supposed to, okay? It's a very interesting experience because for the first time, possibly, your users, the users of your software, are other programmers, okay? They write their logic in Lua, and you, as the C++ developer, need to make sure that if they write certain Lua, you make calls into that Lua to make the start function work, to make the update function that they wrote work, okay, at the right moment and in the right way and with good performance. In any case, how do you even start with this? Well, you can actually download this example if you want to, right here at this bit.ly link, and you'll get a big, nice batch of C++ code that kind of shows you a basic composition framework, okay? And it's not that hard. It really, really isn't, once you understand what's going on. So right here we have a component parent class, okay? No one ever instantiates this class. What you do instead is it is kind of a parent class, all right? And you derive a class from this, okay? And you will implement your own start function, your own update, your own destroy function. And however you do that, that will make the component. So you might create, for instance, a class rigid body that derives from component. And then you will implement versions of these functions to make all the physics magic happen, all right? To move the object, to have a velocity, okay? Gravity, stuff like that. Here's an example right here. We've got our classic transform component, and it derives from that component base class, which means it's going to have a start and update and destroy function. This transform is special, okay? It has a position datum, and it has some functions for getting and setting that position. It also has a bunch of other stuff, but we don't really care about that, okay? You need also a container class, okay? I call this the entity class. In game engine architecture, we call it an actor. In EECS 440, Unreal Engine calls it an actor. And in this course, we call it what? A game object, okay? These are just containers, fancy containers of components, okay? So a vector of component pointers called components. Every single frame of the game, what are we going to do? We're going to iterate through every component that we have on this game object, and we're going to call update for that component. We have a function like add component, templated class T, which means that we can add any type we want. We're going to instantiate, allocate memory for that new type. We're going to put that component into our array. We're going to call start for that component so that the start function runs when the component spawns in. And then we're going to return a pointer to that component so that we can customize the component afterward, okay? That is pretty much exactly how the add component function works for you today in Unity, okay? And it's not that much code, all right? This is the main function where we can see all of this coming together. We create a new game object, we add a couple components to that game object, okay? We get a reference to that component's, to the transform of the game object. We set a new position for that transform. We can see that it updated. We can call update if we want on our actor, which causes all the components we got to update, and there you go, okay? So this is all to say that if you're interested in getting composition in your C++ program, whatever it might be a game, it might be a simulation, it might be a calculator program, okay? You can get it, all right? And it's not too hard to get going. In summary, all right, composition, components, what you're doing in Unity is a very flexible alternative to inheritance. It allows you to mix and match logic at runtime, and the more great components you have, the easier it is for you to create things without writing any code. So often, a game team in industry will have a group of engineers that writes the components, but they'll also have a team of game designers that just use and configure the components, okay? When the game designers need help, they need a new feature, they'll come and talk to you, the game engineers, the gameplay engineers, to go and create that new feature or upgrade the component or fix something, okay? Super, super, super useful for any sort of scenario that involves properties or adjectives or experimentation, okay? And it also is a very, very good complement to inheritance as well, all right? So this isn't something where you throw inheritance out. This is another tool for your toolbox so that you can move faster, write code that scales better, write code that is more dry and easier to maintain, and that's going to make your life way, way, way nicer, okay? Especially as you move on to Project 2 and Project 3, okay? So keep all of this in mind. All right. Any questions on this topic of composition? I think one of the hardest things about Project 1 is that you jump into Unity and you just don't have a good mental model for how it's supposed to work. Very often, and I did this as well, I'll see a student writing their game in a very kind of classic, way. They will create one component and they will then do everything from that one component. They'll try and write the entire game from one component, a God component, that's slapped on a single game object. All right? Not usually how you want to do it. That does not take advantage of what composition gives you. You want to, in most cases, you want to have small components that are distributed, slapped on a bunch of game objects, and solve a decentralized problem. On occasion, remember our Flappy Bird Toast Manager. On occasion, you want to have a singleton manager big component, okay? But that's only for centralized problems, like a central toast system. So when you are developing on Project 2 and you've got a problem or a feature you want to create, think about, do I have a decentralized problem or a centralized problem to solve? and that will inform what you want to do. Okay, so there you go. I hope that makes things a little bit more clear. If it was a little bit whooshy here at the end of Project 1. Okay, starting a new code base. This is your chance to really get things right. Okay, and not all of you will. That's okay. This stuff is really hard. This stuff we're talking about is kind of more like senior lead dev kind of stuff. Okay, we're getting closer and closer to like game architect stuff instead of just game programmer. If you really want to get a feel for what game architects care about, you take the upper level CS game engine architecture course, and that will give you a good feel for that stuff. Okay, you know you're becoming more of a lead dev or a game architect when you find yourself thinking more about the act of programming and about how other people will program or about how you will program in the future, and less about how do I solve this one quick little feature problem. Okay? Anyway, okay. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to spend a tiny bit of time, and I would like to, you know what? I'm going to skip this. Maybe we'll save this for Wednesday when P2 actually starts. If we have extra time, we'll play some P2 projects here today. I want to talk to you about a really fun topic. This is the topic of feedback loops. Okay? This is something that is really important in game design, and it can blow up your designs, or it can save you. All right? Feedback loops are really deadly if you don't know about them, but they can be harnessed to exceptional effect if you understand them, or at the very least, you can kind of detect them and figure out when they're going right, when they're going wrong. Okay? Has anyone played a game called Mario Kart? Okay? Then you may have felt this before, especially if you were in the first place position, heading into the final lap, and you hear that horrible sound. What is that? Beep, 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 right? A blue shell or a red shell coming for you, coming in hot at the last moment, and who knows what could happen, all right? So, I have a question for you. What do the following have in common? What do the following three things have in common? Progressive income tax schemes. This is where the more money you make, the more you pay, right? Dampening forces, okay? This is like that of a spring, right? If you take a spring and you push it in or you pull it from its resting state, there are forces that will bring it back to that normal resting state over time. Okay? So progressive income tax schemes, dampening forces, and Mario Kart. What do they all have in common?
The more you exceed some set point, the harder it pulls you back.
Exactly. The more you perturb the system, the more it pushes it back into its normal resting state. Okay? And this is called a negative feedback loop. That is its formal term. It's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing, okay? But it's called negative because it fights that change in the system. It kind of pulls things back, all right, to its resting state. Have any of you played a game called Left 4 Dead? This is a very interesting example. We've already talked about this game during the guidance lecture, right? How they used lights to pull players through a dark environment and help them understand where to go, okay? You might also call negative feedback loop balancing feedback, okay? The formal definition is that this occurs when some function of the output of a system is fed back into the system in a manner that kind of fights the fluctuations and settles it down, okay? So the output of the system goes back into the system and causes it to settle, all right, and become stable, all right? What is a negative feedback loop? Why is a negative feedback loop, okay? There was a famous World Cup game, I think it was in Brazil, and it was super exciting, right? The Brazilian team was on their home turf, and they were in the final game, I think, against Germany. Okay, anyone remember how this game ended up? Anyone? It went like 7-1. It was a complete blowout against Brazil. It was devastating, right? Okay, there was no negative feedback loop in the game of football, or we would call it soccer. Okay? There's no negative feedback loop at all, right? If you are in the lead, there's nothing that tries to help the other team catch up to you. Okay, there's nothing that pushes you back. Have you ever seen a lopsided score in a sports game like this? Anyone watch the Super Bowl last night? Okay, that got out of hand right away. And nothing helped the Chiefs kind of get back into it and catch up. And so, for a lot of people, including me, the game finished at the end of the first quarter. I was done with the game, okay? They're not catching this. They're toast, all right? And so I walked away. The game lost all its value, and everyone disengaged, okay? Is that the kind of thing we want in game design? Well, sometimes, but maybe sometimes not, okay? Here's another good one, okay? This is Texas losing to UCLA by 63 points, okay? I'm guessing there aren't a whole lot of people in those stands, okay? So, negative feedback loops, right? Why would you want them? Usually it's to prevent situations like that, okay? I'm going to show you a clip, another developer commentary from Left 4 Dead, and I want you to pay attention to what they say. Left 4 Dead is a game that is procedurally generated, at least in part. There are a lot of handcrafted things about the game, but a lot of things are not. And so, one core objective for the development team was to have the game change itself based on how the team was doing. If the team is just going really, really well, and they're doing super well, they're super fast, they're super talented, the game will actually remove health items and ammo pickups from the environment. And they'll also spawn in more enemies in the team's path to try and make the game a little bit more exciting, a little bit more difficult to challenge the team. But on the other hand, if the team is really struggling and just barely hanging on, the game will throttle back the enemies. Okay? It'll start to place more helpful items in the player's path. And the objective is that every team, no matter how skilled, just barely survives to the next safe room to get that dramatic experience, no matter who you are, no matter how skilled you are. Let's go ahead and listen to them, okay? And their take on it.
Based on the success of procedurally populating the world with wanderers and mobs, we decided to try to guarantee a consistent dramatic experience for the survivors. Through playtesting, we observed sessions where some survivor teams would occasionally get into a downward spiral of being overwhelmed to the point that they were never able to regroup and get ahead. This was partially due to some poor choices of the survivor players in various skill levels, but also due to the luck of the draw with the procedural population system. A random streak of bad dice rolls would either be incredibly exciting for some teams or a death sentence for others. To address this, we created a system that tracks each survivor's stress level by watching for events like how much damage are you taking, how many zombies have you killed near you, and so on. If a survivor's stress level gets too high, the system will step in and forcibly throttle back the zombie population system to make sure the team gets a break every now and then. These breaks are critical for a couple of reasons. The primary reason is battle fatigue. Constant fighting and gunfire is tiring. Secondly, the team needs an end to these skirmishes along the way to give them a chance to regroup, heal, and reassess. Lastly, these big exciting battles are only exciting if there are also periods of quiet, creepy, tension, and anticipation to contrast them against. This dramatic pacing is really critical to creating a fun experience. Once this system was in place, we realized we had all this useful information on how the survivor team is actually doing. From a dramatic standpoint, Ideally, we want to see the survivor team just make it into the next checkpoint, limping in, being chased by the horde, so they can celebrate when the door closes and they yell, "We made it."
Right? And it makes perfect sense. We have software, right? We can have that software kind of monitor how the players are doing and kind of dynamically change the difficulty in order to try and get a consistent, fun, dramatic experience no matter who you are, okay? This is sometimes referred to as dynamic difficulty adjustment, and it is in a lot of games, and it's often hidden, okay? Left 4 Dead doesn't advertise that it's doing this. Resident Evil 4 does not advertise that it is doing this. But if you start to really struggle, provided you're not on a super high difficulty setting, the game will usually try and scale things back without letting you notice. Okay? Removing enemies from the environment and providing new ammo pickups, power-ups, health items, stuff like that. That's a negative feedback loop. Okay, if you're having a really easy time, it tries to pull you back. If you're having a really tough time, it tries to push you forward. Okay, that is what a spring does, trying to get you back to the pack. That is what a progressive income scheme does. If you're making just tons of money, it tries to tax you more. If you're making little to no money, it tries to tax you less. Okay, and that's how it goes. One of the big benefits of this system is that it prevents runaway scenarios. Okay, if you have a game like, anyone play League of Legends in here? I know it's kind of an obscure game, or Dota, right? I don't play these games very much, but I've heard from a lot of friends that often you will quit the game in the first 5 minutes because one team, right, the other team has gotten a little bit ahead of you. And because they're a little bit ahead of you, it's easier for them to get even more ahead, and they start to snowball and they take over the game. Okay? Some games have comeback mechanics like Mario Kart. If you are in first place in Mario Kart, what kind of items will you get from the item boxes? Garbage. Garbage, right? You get banana peels, you get crappy, weak green shell, maybe, if you're lucky. If you're super lucky, you might get the super horn, which allows you to get rid of a blue shell or something, if you time it right, at least. But what happens if you are in last place in Mario Kart? The item boxes will give you what? Yeah. Yeah, you're going to get exotic, amazing power-ups that will probably, with good usage, get you from last place to at least like 5th or maybe even 4th place, okay? Bullet bill stuff. You're going to see some of this in just a bit. So it prevents runaway scenarios if you've got a powerful negative feedback loop in your game, but it also prevents exciting, exotic scenarios as well, okay? So I have another set of questions for you. What do the following have in common? What do the following 3 things have in common? Compound interest. This is, I think compound interest has sometimes been said to be the 8th wonder of the world. This is one of the reasons that most people can retire. Okay, you've ever heard of a 401k? Okay, well, you get a job, you put money into a 401k investment account. That's what they are, and your investments start to go like this. Okay, because you make some compound interest on those investments, which means you invest $10. And because of that investment, in a year, you get $1 back, okay? But that $1 adds to the 10, and now it's $11 that are getting invested. So now the next year, you don't get $1 back, you get $1.10 back. And that starts to grow, and it goes exponential, and that's how people end up with a couple $1 million at their retirement date if they did things right, and they can retire, okay? So that's compound interest, okay? It just kind of snowballs, all right? So that's one thing. What about the second thing? Unstable physical equilibrium. Now, what on earth am I talking about? This is when everything is stable, but if you perturb the value even slightly, it goes to the moon and it explodes, okay? It never comes back, all right? You wonder what this looks like? Here's a cloth simulation that is unstable. And when it looks fine for a little while, but then something tiny goes wrong and it all explodes in the matter of a blink of an eye. Watch this one really closely. Okay? Watch this closely. Ready? Ready? Okay. A couple tiny things go wrong on the sides of the cloth, and suddenly the entire thing blows up. This is an unstable physics simulation. This is not what you want. Okay? And the final thing, we had compound interest, unstable physics, and Call of Duty kill streaks. What are these? How do these work? Anyone play Call of Duty? Statistically speaking, a lot of you do. All right? One of the best-selling franchises in history. Makes more money than most Hollywood blockbusters. Yeah.
I play Call of Duty.
What's a Call of Duty kill streak?
It's like when you kill multiple people without being killed yourself.
Yep. And what happens?
You get more points, and like you can get like rewards and weapons and stuff.
Ooh, weapons. Yeah, power-ups. Okay. So Call of Duty kill streak says that when you've killed 3 opponents in a row, we're going to give you a special power-up that allows you to kill even more opponents in a row. If you can keep this going, if you can get about 30 kills in a row, you unlock, I think, the atomic bomb, which just ends the match. And in your team's victory, in your team's favor. Let's go ahead and take a look at what happens. This first one, you get really easily. All it does is it gives you a radar that shows you where your opponents are.
UAV on standby. UAV inbound. RCXD ready for deployment. Friendly RCXD inbound. Hunter-killer drone ready for deployment.
Right, so you get it, okay? You have defeated some opponents, and the game says, good job, we're going to make it easier for you to defeat even more, okay? A bit of a snowball effect. What are all of these things? They're the opposite of negative feedback loops. They are positive feedback loops. But are they positive as in good? Well, no, that's not what it means, okay? It could be good or bad depending on what your design intentions are, okay? But positive feedback loops, the positive here means that we accentuate any perturbation of the system, okay? If things are a little bit out of the normal, it actually gets pushed to become even more out of the ordinary, okay? And so that's how it goes. Call of Duty kill streaks, a classic example. This is called runaway feedback, or sometimes called snowball feedback loop, okay? Basically, the output of the system gets fed back into the system and accentuates any change from that system's resting state, okay? So you poke it even slightly and it goes off to the moon in some crazy direction, okay? So one of the benefits of this approach is that runaway scenarios can be really fun, okay, and very exciting if you're on the positive, successful end of those, all right? It provides an exceptional feeling of progression. Unfortunately, it can also end games prematurely. So this is the kind of feedback loop that you have to be very careful of if you are in a multiplayer context. In fact, in many multiplayer games, designers will very explicitly try and remove positive feedback loops. Or they might even go even further, like in Mario Kart's example, and they will try and insert a negative feedback loop to fight that, okay? So, right, you want to be very careful about this one. Be careful, all right? But it's very potent and powerful. Has anyone ever heard of the idle games genre or the clicker games genre? This is so fun and enticing, these positive feedback loops, that there's an entire genre, actually several, dedicated to it exclusively, okay? Now, what I want to do is I'm going to show this to you briefly, and then I'm going to continue to play it while you all take your 5-minute break. Okay, we're going to see how big we can push the snowball. Okay, so here's a game called Idle Breakout. All right, and here's the entire game. This is it. Oh, wait a second. Oh, I need to reset this game. How do I reset it? Hold on. Hold on. Reset it. Wipe all data. Okay, here we go. Here's the game. What is the game? I click on this game of Breakout to break blocks, and I get some money. Right now, $1 every time I do. Okay? Well, the more dollars I get, the more things I can buy. Now I have enough money, $45, to buy some help. I'm going to buy a basic ball. And now I can make money even faster. I have enough money to buy another helper. Okay, now I have 2 basic balls. Okay? Make more money, more money. I can go into the upgrades and I can buy more power, okay, for my clicks. So I just did so. All right? And I can keep clicking and I can keep making money. Okay, I'm going to pass this stage right here. And now, oh, what's that? I can just click more. I can click faster. Okay? Make money even faster. All right? Hire more help. And you're probably thinking to yourself, like, Austin, you know, why would anyone play this? Well, see, I just bought an upgrade that lets me click twice with 1 click. So now I'm making money even faster. Okay? So now I get about $2 for every click instead of the 1 I was previously getting. So I've doubled my my revenue. Okay? All right. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to get this plasma ball, and then we'll take our break, okay? How many of you play these kinds of games? Okay? And you're all smiling like it's something to be a little bit ashamed about, right? I will tell you it's not something to be ashamed about. Let's go buy a plasma ball. So you see, this ball can hit multiple blocks at the same time. It also moves much faster. If I can get 1,000, I can get a sniper ball, which will actually target. It has AI. So it's much smarter, it's much more efficient at helping me wipe these blocks out, okay? So the last thing I'll say is, you can hopefully see the appeal, right? Things are growing, I'm developing my ball empire, and it's accelerating, right? Now, a question, how popular do you think this is? This simple game, which, by the way, I think most of you could program, given a week or two. How many times do you think this game has been played? Yeah.
100.
100 times? I would account for like about 30% of those, at least. How many times?
Probably, I don't know, it was pretty popular at my school, so I'd say maybe around like 1 million.
1 million?
Middle school and high school.
Okay, 1 million. Any other guesses? Let's see. This game has been played 775,000 times. Okay, so approaching 1 million times. Yeah, good call. All right. So everyone, let's take 5 minutes. I'm going to continue to play this. We'll see how far we can get in that time. And we will see you back here in 5. Okay, see you then. I love how you're still watching. So a lot of people at their jobs, especially if they have a desk job, will like have games like this running on one monitor while they do some business and some work on another. And during the downtime, they'll make decisions, they'll make purchases, they'll upgrade stuff, right? So, okay, I can afford my very first sniper ball. Let's see how it goes here. speed 4, power 5, and it will hone in on nearby bricks very fast. Look at that. It's just knocking him down. Knocking him down. What's this ball? Scatterball. Creates additional single hit balls. That's super cool. Okay, what else we got? I got a random ball fact. Look at how fast we're making money now. I'm making $100 every couple seconds. Absolutely amazing. Okay, I'm going to upgrade my power a little bit more so I can really knock these out quickly. Make money a bit faster. Got a cool little heart design. Very cool. I feel like I'm going to wear my mouse out playing this game. Okay, I can order some additional help. Another sniper ball. Now, eventually, I can just let them do all the work. Okay, purchased a third sniper ball. So you can see how games like this kind of tend to have addictive qualities. If you've ever known someone who has gotten really, really deeply into investing, this is a little bit of that snowball-y feel that many of them will run into, right? This idea that I'm going to make some money, and then that money will help me make more money, and eventually you're making money by doing nothing. Note here, I can now take my hands off the wheel, and I still gain resources relatively quickly, okay? If I'd made different choices, maybe I would make it even more quickly, but you know, that's how it goes. Let's see here. I can upgrade the balls themselves. That's really cool. Okay, we'll give it one more minute. That'll be 5. Wow, look at how the sniper balls in that corner just ate up that block. Amazing. I'm very proud of them. Okay, another sniper ball. And there we go, right? So at this point, we really have assembled an army, and the game will play itself, okay? And pretty effectively, too. There we go, right? Okay, so I hope you can see the appeal. All right, so an entire genre was kind of built on the back of this positive feedback loop, and how fun it can be and engaging it can be, and satisfying it can be to feel that sense of progress going exponential, okay? But again, you want to be very careful about positive feedback loops accidentally getting into places you don't want them, such as a multiplayer game where your performance in the first minute makes the second minute either more likely for you to win or less likely, Okay? So, a question, right? Negative feedback loops. Just to summarize, how can they go wrong? Negative feedback loops we talked about in a very positive manner, right? You have these players who are breaking the game. You can pull them back and kind of keep things competitive. But can they go wrong? Yes?
Can make players who are like ahead might make you feel like it's unfair.
Yeah, so if you think about Mario Kart is not a game that you ever see in professional esports tournaments. Why? It's because Mario Kart, with its blue shells, right, with its red shells, all this stuff, with its power-up items, is not a good measure of skill. Okay, if you want to determine raw skill, someone who is okay at Mario Kart will occasionally defeat a player who is a master at Mario Kart. Okay, simply because they get the right dice rolls at the right time. And so you have to be a bit careful. You can also get into that situation where you can be playing a game like Mario Party, okay? Nintendo loves their negative feedback loops. Here we have an example of a player who had 8 stars and was in first place. And then toward the end of the game, they get a chance time slot, okay? What is chance time? Well, it's where a bunch of these little chance items are chosen. And in this case, this player who is in the lead has to give all of her stars to the player who is in last place. And thus, you've played super well the entire game, but sorry, you're going to come in last place, okay? And when that happens, the rage it causes can be substantial, okay? And people don't have so much fun. Skyrim, this is Elder Scrolls Oblivion, had a really interesting negative feedback loop, okay? So, has anyone played this game? Or its sequel, Skyrim? In Skyrim, this was kind of there. They kind of tried to fix it, but not really. So in Elder Scrolls Oblivion, they had a negative feedback loop where at the beginning of the game, you were, pretty weak character. So the game's world would be filled with enemies like wolves that were around your level, okay? You could defeat them, but they were still kind of a challenge, right? Well, as you level up in the game would apply a negative feedback loop. What would it do? As you got stronger, the game's enemies would also get stronger alongside you. So toward the end of the game, you aren't fighting any wolves. All you find in the overworld are Shrek here, okay? Trolls, basically. And those trolls would be leveled up to be kind of just under your level, okay? So you'd have a difficult time fighting them, but you could still beat them, okay? Now, this had a huge problem, actually, because of the way that level scaling works in the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. So, this negative feedback loop had a problem. People would play the game, and they would get stronger, but because the game leveled up alongside them, they would never feel like they were actually getting stronger, okay? The game's difficulty never changed. In a game like Dark Souls, the difficulty is managed by area and it does not level with you. So you can get super leveled up, so it's strong, and go back to a starting area and you can feel that strength, right? Because those enemies haven't leveled up. And if you want a greater challenge, you go to the more difficult areas and there you go. In Elder Scrolls Oblivion, they kind of messed that up in my opinion. They really messed up in another way though. In Elder Scrolls Oblivion, your level can increase in many ways, all right? One of the ways you can increase your overall combat level is, for instance, by sneaking, okay? Or, if you can believe this, even by running around. In the leveling up system, you get better at certain things by doing those things often. So if you spend a lot of time running around and traveling, your athleticism will improve. That will increase your combat level, but you didn't actually get any better at combat. This is a huge problem because the game starts leveling up your enemies. Meanwhile, you are technically leveling up without getting any stronger, okay? You can just sprint a bit better. You can jump a bit higher. So what does this mean? Actually, a positive feedback loop came out of this attempt at a negative feedback loop because as soon as the player is under-leveled compared to the enemies, what does that make the player want to do? avoid combat because it's hard to win. Well, if you keep avoiding combat, the enemies keep getting stronger than you. Eventually, toward the end of the game, they one-shot you, and there's nothing you can do about it. A negative feedback loop that was messed up becomes a messed up positive feedback loop. That is the Bethesda that I know and love. Okay? All right, the last thing I'm going to show you, this little footage. This is called being Mario Karted, okay? And I think you're going to see the positive feedback loop here, okay? The negative feedback loop. This is a Daisy player who's coming in across a bridge, and this is the final bridge. On the other side of the bridge is the finish line. She's about to win first place. Let's watch what happens to her. And the player just kind of stops and doesn't finish. I'm guessing the player probably just unplugged their controller at that point, or maybe rage quit the game. Anyway, so feedback loops are extremely important. Sometimes, as a designer, you want them in your game, and you design them in by experimenting with different mechanics and tweaking how they work. Other times, they will accidentally slip into your game. It's your job as a game designer to detect their existence and to make a good decision about whether or not it's going to give you the experience you want, okay? And if not, you can do things to extract and kind of rip out that feedback loop, or you can at least massage it or put in other feedback loops to kind of counteract them, okay? So please keep them in mind and keep a lookout for them from now on. One classic example that I see a lot in games: what happens to you when you're playing a game and your health is getting really low? Anyone know what happens to you? In a military shooting game like a Call of Duty, when your health is very low, what happens to your screen? Yeah.
Like some kind of flashing or some visual effect?
Yeah. Your screen gets like a vignette on it. Or in a first-person shooter game, often you'll get a bloody effect on your screen. The bloody effect on your screen makes it harder to see. What does that make it more likely to happen next? I took damage, and now I can't see very well, making it more likely for me to take damage. What do we call that?
Positive feedback loop.
A positive feedback loop. It is accentuating you to your doom. Do you want this as a designer? Do you want a hurt player to be very likely to die? Maybe, maybe not. I would probably say no. I want to make it easier for the player to escape that situation. That will create a really dramatic, exciting, fun experience if they're on the ropes and they can somehow claw their way back into it, right? But I don't work for Call of Duty, so there you go. All right. We have about 30 minutes left, so what I want to do, how long is Sid Meier's Game Jam? About 23 minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to watch this Sid Meier special, this documentary on game dev at the University of Michigan, circa 2010, okay? And then we're going to probably play one P2 project. So you get a feel for what P2 is about, and you can think about what you might want to do for P2. Now, some context here. Sid Meier is a University of Michigan alum. He's getting a bit up there in age. He doesn't travel or do many talks anymore, but he used to come to the university and give talks to my course, which is really, really fun. Very, very nice, humble guy. You're going to get a feel for that in this video. And his son, Ryan Meier, his fun nickname was Kid Meier in Wolverine Soft. He was the president of Wolverine Soft a bit before I was, and Wolverine Soft was running these game jams, which are 48-hour hackathons devoted to making a game quickly. And so Sid Meier is going to walk you through that, and we're going to make a game in the top of the Duderstadt Center, okay? Here we go.
My name is Sid Meyer, and I design computer games.
Yeah, Sid Meier, he's the man. Sid Meier is one of the greatest game designers of all time.
Sid Meier's one of my favorite all-time games. It's like everyone has that childhood, I played Civilization, I played Pirates.
And it was just two things that I really enjoyed in programming, and so I was kind of at the right time, the right place to be part of the very early days of computer gaming. We're here at my alma mater at University of Michigan for the 48-hour game design competition. I'll make it a game in 48 hours. We get the theme at the beginning of the 48 hours, and then we have 2 days to make a game. I'm not an official contestant. I kind of wanted to go through the experience and talk to the guys and kind of show them how it's done.
My name is Ryan Meyer, and my dad is Sid Meyer of Civilization game. I'm the president of Marine South, the game development club on campus. We put together teams of 2 or 3 people, and their goal is to make a game over the course of the weekend based around a particular theme. This year the theme is restraints, and our guest this year to judge is Sid Meyer. He actually suggested that he would like to make a game in the 48 hours. It's not officially judged anything, like he just thought it'd be an exciting experience to see what he could come up with.
Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Before we actually start with the coding and the making of games and stuff, points are given for creative use of the theme, not creative explanations of how you use the theme. So now, in keeping with the spirit of this weekend, the theme of our competition is going to be the 4-letter L, love. And for those of you reading that small text, that's not really the case. The actual theme, oh man, who forgot to finish this? The theme this year is restraints. Go forth and code.
I think I've always been interested in making games. I remember when I was a kid, I would spread out on the living room floor all sorts of soldiers and blocks and kind of make my own stories about Civil War battles. What first kind of got me interested in history was a book that my father gave me, American Heritage History of the Civil War. And an artist had created these sandbox-looking representations of all the great battles, and it felt like something happened in your sandbox with your toy soldiers. This was real history. What if I had been there? What if I had that choice to make? If I had that decision to make? What would I have done? What would the consequences have been? And games are the perfect sandbox to explore those kind of questions. I think as a strategy player, just tap into that mindset. There are a lot of parallels actually between the indie games movement today and the early days. We didn't have genres, we weren't constrained by trying to fit specific mold. The budgets were orders of magnitude smaller, so the risks were not great, and we were able to be a little more adventurous. We were breaking new ground in a lot of ways. That kind of went away for a while, but it's come back with indie games movement.
I came into the competition because I've always loved programming.
Yeah, I love the game development, but anything programming is fine. I'm doing games, I have to. That's what I love. Yeah, I can totally relate. I have to do games. Right now people are kind of thinking about the theme and how they want to incorporate it and what kind of game they want to make. We'll definitely see probably a couple of pretty fully done, relatively polished games. We'll probably have a couple clunkers and everywhere in between.
This is the first time I've been covering Michigan since I graduated. To be doable in 2 days makes me run on something I was probably going to work. I'm thinking like a maze game. One of the first things I'm trying to do is just put something up on the screen that either looks fun or doesn't. You're kind of asking the player to jump into this world. So the world has to be appealing and fun and inviting. How do you take it from just a basic maze to something that hasn't been done before? You introduce a simple problem and you gradually make the problem more complex. When I was here originally, the computer was this huge, massive thing that lived in its own air-conditioned domain. It kind of worshipped it. And it did your deck of cards and 20 minutes later, someone came back and hoped that, you had done what you wanted. When I got to college, they were offering this one programming course. And in my spare time, I kind of programmed up this tic-tac-toe algorithm. And in those days, we didn't have terminals. We had to make a deck of cards, put it in, and somebody would do your printout 5 or 10 minutes later. One of the women who was handing out printout saw some tic-tac-toe stuff on it, and horrors. People playing games with a computer that was like unheard of. He called up the professor in Italy, you know, this guy is playing tic-tac-toe with your computer money, Yes, I was one of the very first computer game programmers, even when it was illegal. And a young designer, we're looking for somebody who's kind of able to get to the heart of the problem, and kind of understand what makes a game, and perhaps it's not polished, but it has that kernel of playability.
Here, right now, the team should kind of they're starting to have an idea of what they're going to do for their game, and just make sure everything's on track. If there's any problems, things like that.
The concept of the game is you play as a tiger, and as a tiger, you're kind of compelled to eat these zookeepers. I mean, that's the best part of the game right now.
Essentially, you have a hunger meter at the top. You have to fill it up by continuously eating the zookeepers.
I guess we don't have a solid concept yet as to talk about. Actually, could you kind of in like a little bit, but kind of like in the flow? I have no idea how to use C++. I'd like to learn it. And what better way than hi, I'm the freshman. It's going to be a multiplayer versus game, and the two players are basically going to use several different abilities to try to build walls and attack each other.
We're creating a game that's, I guess, loosely based on the Duck Hunt style game. Our game seems like it's going to be one where there are robots that are trying to escape from something.
So it's mostly just going to be a character escaping from restraints of sorts. You have a runaway train and you have to put it to rest. But you can't control the train because it has no brakes.
First time I've done something like this with a really fixed time limit, so it's going to be kind of an adventure for me as well.
Some people will probably be here till 10 tomorrow, not have left. Some people might be here at 2 in the morning, and we'll see.
I'm getting from the journal when I did to final product is not a direct A to B path. Most designers have a very iterative process, a very step-by-step process. I call it sitting on the chair. I sit in the designer chair for a while, and I jump up, sit in the player's chair, and play the game, and I'm almost psychoanalyzing myself. Okay, am I having fun here?
Just not here. Took a picture of my camera, uploaded it to my computer, and I just finished tracing it. Now I've kind of got something I can base my animations off of. Hopefully it moves us one step toward final product.
We already have like a skeleton in the game, so you can run it, and you kind of get a menu system.
We have it pretty much displaying the map that it's going to take place on.
It's with the level system working. You can move around and bump into things and die.
Still trying to figure out what the theme. I think it's kind of like escape from this haunted house or this, this place that we don't want to be. What I'm looking for is show on the screen the best path to get out of the maze. And I think if you give the player too wide of a view, it might be easy to solve. For me, it's a lot easier to try something because I feel guilty asking somebody else to do something and say, that didn't really work. You can't use that. We could never imagine the whole on day one. All we have is kind of the German idea. It comes like a cookie. What do you got in the cupboard? Let's make a meal out of it. Just after I graduated from college, I had a real job, systems analyst job. In my spare time, I created a game on our network. I guess somebody else found it, and all of a sudden everybody on the network was playing. It was kind of a light bulb going off in my head. And, maybe I give this a try. I entered into a conversation with Bill. We were at a company function. He saw the opportunity to kind of get on the ground floor of this industry. There was a Red Baron World War I flying game, and Bill was the fighter pilot, so he kind of sat down in the game and said, let me show you how this is done. A young man who shot down a couple planes and got a score. And so I said, let me give it a try. And I said, I shot down a lot more planes and got a higher score. And he said, well, wait a minute, I'm the fighter pilot. How come you are able to get this higher score? And I said, well, I'm programmed so I can see the algorithms that are being used in the tactics now. And he said, well, hey, maybe we should start a company. You might know what you're doing. So that was the beginning of Microprose. We had basically no clue what we were doing. I would make these games, put them in a plastic baggie. I print out a manual on my home printer, maybe 4 or 5 pages. Bill would actually come up and down I-95 between Washington and New York looking for computer stores that might be interested in buying this box of games that in the backseat of his car. And I remember getting a call from him one day. He was on the road. He said, Sid, I think we're onto something. This guy got 15 games. This could go somewhere. Eventually, things got rolling, and Bill said, Sid, I can afford to hire you now. You can quit your day job and become a game designer full time.
So right now it's about 1 o'clock on Saturday morning. About 16 hours have elapsed in the contest. We've got about a day and 8 hours left.
I actually just woke up. These other guys have been working through the night, so I'm looking through what they were to try and get up to speed. I'm trying to get the enemy loading thing up.
Last night I got a good thought where I had kind of created a blanket that looked like the title of the thing is Escape from Zombie Hotel. Pretty much kind of made a next thing is putting the zombies.
It's nice to take a little break and see how everybody's going to catch up.
When we're in the room working on the games, everybody's
just gotta keep working on designing the levels, I guess.
You know, if one out last, I think that's good advice.
Playing games, so I spent so much time growing up as kids playing his games. Also,
I haven't seen his game yet. It's ridiculous. You must have like a function like build a game. Done.
We spent a lot of time back and forth designing, programming, playing. As we get closer to shipping, we have to sell it so the testers can test something stable. We ran kind of after the first play test, there were kind of 2 or 3 problems. You were basically encouraged to ship everything you saw, and there was no real penalty for that. If you wanted to kind of think before you shot the zombies, or if you had like limited ammunition. Kind of feels like it's 80% there for tomorrow. We'll probably start to seek games together. Maybe let you select a difficulty level or something.
Yeah, we have a few levels in there to test for see if everything works. And we have the last level just for our enjoyment. Just like 30 or 40 enemies in there, and you just mow them all down as the tiger.
We're pretty happy with how far we've gotten. I mean, we have the basic game. It's pretty fun.
It's meant to be a two-player versus sort of game.
There's two kids and they're trying to kill each other. We're having fun, but we're probably biased towards it.
I think we've kind of overcome most of the technical hurdles. Right now we're deciding what information we want to display and the game screen. I feel like it's really going to come together in this last 19 hours and 13 minutes. Is there any exciting gameplay? Not yet.
The lack of sleep is definitely getting to me.
Sleep is the second priority.
I've always kind of cultivated that sort of a situation where I can have some time to explore ideas on my own. And Civilization started that way. I was actually supposed to be working on another game at the time, and like after a month or so, this thing appeared. And for quite a few months, it was only myself and Bruce working on the game. Every day or two, I'd have a new version. We would play it, come up with some ideas. I'd integrate those. I'd play it, put in some of my own ideas. So that was the way games were done in 1989, 90, in the good old days. And then we talk about our games that are almost our children. Are they going to go out in the world and make a success of themselves? We never know. They all have their own personalities. So I'm proud when it goes out and does well. Every now and then, the business side kind of intrudes. My career had to come to an end at a certain point to kind of move on to a new environment. Praxis was really an attempt to create the original feeling of Microprose, a small studio focused on game development. I've actually been very fortunate to work with great entrepreneurs that have kind of allowed me to be creative. So I've been very lucky.
Yes, today our competition is Valentine's Day. We do have a guys in there today. This was not intentional. Just happened to work out. This was a weekend we could do it, and we didn't actually realize that Sunday was 14th until about a week ago when somebody mentioned it. At that point, we had everything booked, and it wasn't too much we could change about that. I don't know if that says anything about anything, but take it as you will.
We stayed up all night. We were playing, but it just happened, I guess. Things kind of into the hole. We were so tired. We eventually passed out.
There are times like right here when you're looking at that blank page and you're saying, I have no idea what to do. How do you make something like it's just kind of ethereal concept. And it turns out that adding more zombies, faster zombies, does really increase the difficulty of the game. I'd say maybe 20% of the original concept is still there, and the rest kind of got evolved and changed as we went along.
This evening, we'll be judging games. Some of these guys have been here all night. Probably gotten very little sleep over the last 2 days or so. That's definitely going to be distance from coding. There's some groups that are still maybe a little bit behind. Ideally, the team should just be working on polish.
We have an hour and 30 minutes left. We're pretty close to the wire.
We're not gonna make it.
$12 minutes left in the competition.
What's the juice with the squeeze? Yeah, I suppose it is.
Talk about how the process is going to work real quick, and then we will get started.
Three of us and Sid and I are going to play all the games. We're going to write up our scores, crunch some numbers, and then we'll come out with results.
Joystick moves and the A button fire. I think we're going to put Escape from Zombie Hotel on the back burner for a while. Maybe, let the ideas percolate. Maybe there'll be a kind of groundswell out there. People start pitching and writing letters. You never know. It might come back.
It's movement with the A&Ds is kind of disappointing, but I'm still pleased with a lot of the things that we did get going. We encountered too many unforeseen bugs, and
there are very few foreseen bugs.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry because you're in shackles and you got a ball and chain, so. Yeah, you are.
Totally I can see you, kind of use this interface. One thing it seemed like I could play better by just watching what's going on there.
I'm Joe.
Hi, Joe. Sid. It's me. See ya.
Fairly simple game.
Alright.
The goal is to capture these flying birds for their own benefit, though.
You've run into
what I'm calling the red bug. It's a little bit of a showstopper at the moment. It's been pretty intense. Anytime you try to develop a project like this, you lose a little sleep, but we've managed to put in a good amount of work.
Our game is called The Mad Magician. I guess we made it how we would like to play.
I think we put together a pretty good game.
I'm fairly confident.
Give me one moment to figure out.
So the goal is to kill your opponent. These are your controls, those are mine. Sorry, they're backwards. So you can shoot arrows, lay bombs, and build walls.
Some parts of it take a lot of skill, and other times it's just luck.
I think we win. We're feeling pretty good about our project. Hopefully Sid likes it. If not, we'll probably cry a little bit.
Alright, so let's start with two restraints. I mean, it was kind of unplayable.
Get another 40. That's a 96. I like the controller. That was a high point.
Jailbreak. There was a whole lot of play, unfortunately. I mean, it was like the one level. Valentine's Day. Follow the original theme. It's kind of cool that they didn't move their game like that. Hasn't been done very often. Mad Magician. Overall, it was cool. It was fun. Theme was pretty well integrated. I think like you had your powers that were restrained.
Went very fast. Often hitting the keys as fast as I could.
Zoo escape.
Fast moving, but you got to try again right away.
I mean, it was a lot of fun to play, and it weren't any really errors or anything that stopped it. And last was Avian Infection.
Surprisingly solid game. They definitely chose something they could do in 48 hours. I think there's one bug that hung up the game, which was unfortunate.
It's a very kind of cool to try to get the high score and keep going. It was compelling to definitely some replay there.
48 hours. A lot of people polished to play the game.
Are we ready to announce the winner?
This is the first time I wasn't sure I could get something done in that amount of time.
In 8th place is Team 2 with Tainted Restraint.
Well, I think this is just a foretaste of what's going to happen in computer gaming. There's just this new generation of computer game designers.
In 3rd place is Team 8 with Valentine's Day.
A lot of times, you try to do something ambitious and time slips away, a bug or two, and you can be kind of out of luck. I think a lot of our teams did a great job.
Then in 2nd place is Team 5 with the Mad Magician. In 1st place is Team 1 with Zoo Escape.
I was shocked when they heard it. I'm still kind of shaking.
Yeah, the juice was worth the squeeze, I would say.
Yeah, it was worth the squeeze.
I mean, great ideas, great execution, good teamwork. Looking forward to doing more with it.
I'd like to hope that part of my legacy is encouraging inspiring other game designers to try things. I think game design is an art. I think it's something where you put a lot of your own personality, creativity into. Where there's a technology, games are one of the first things that's going to take advantage of. They are so fundamentally empowering, encouraging, engrossing. I hope that a little bit to do with encouraging.
So a lot of this took place the year before I got to campus, and I really, really wish that I'd gotten to campus slightly earlier so I could have participated. Sid's a really, really cool guy, and if you ever get the chance, please meet him and say hi. Again, I don't think he travels all that much these days, but who knows? Maybe you can link him, chat him, tell him you're a UMich, right? Send him an email, something like that. Write him a letter, and who knows, right? I don't think we have enough time to play any P2 projects, but I'll give you the gist of it, okay? Project 2, the best Project 2s, the best experiences that come out of Project 2, and I'm not talking about the game, I'm talking about your development experience, is when you keep a really, really tight scope. You only have 2 weeks, okay? You only have 2 weeks, and while your abilities and skills have improved, be careful not to bite off more than you can chew, okay? I recommend on P2, as I do on P3, to start with a very small idea that has some room for expansion. And if you have time, you can expand in those directions that you want to. But keep your project simple. Try and focus on a small core set of 1 or 2 main mechanics. And then ask yourself, what are all the unique ways someone could use these mechanics to do something interesting, to make an interesting decision, okay? Like you heard from Sid here, he has this game where you're running through this mall and you're shooting zombies. But he discovers from playtesting that there's a problem. There are no interesting decisions. If you see a zombie, you shoot the zombie. There's never any reason for you to not want to shoot. So Sid thinks to himself, oh, maybe I should limit the amount of ammo. So this becomes a bit of a puzzle game. Which zombies do I care about? Which ones are in the way, right? Because I can't take them all out. That's a very kind of Resident Evil inspired design decision to try and create some decisions for the player. Okay? Eventually he decides he's going to make certain zombies faster, some slower, try and make some interesting decisions that way. But keep your mechanics very limited in quantity, but try and find a lot of interesting things those mechanics can help the player do. That way, you'll have only a couple things you need to teach, but you'll have a lot of things the player can discover and a lot of decisions to make with those mechanics. Also, the fewer mechanics you have, the less you need to program. The less bugs can creep into your software, okay? So it'll benefit you in many ways to keep things small and then expand as you have time, all right? That's all I have for you today. I will see you on Wednesday. We'll launch Project 2 on Wednesday, okay? See you then. Bye-bye. Okay, everyone watching online, thank you for joining us, and we will see you later. Take care all. Bye-bye.